Hello, this is Charles Epstein, host of the Catalyst podcast. Today's guest, Jordan Green, is a licensed clinical social worker who founded Remble Health in 2020. Remble is a mental health app that empowers individuals, providers, and clients with innovative AI tools, mental health resources, and 24/7 AI-powered chat support. With Remble, mental health support is not only effective, but also immediate, accessible, confidential, and personalized to each user's unique journey. Jordan joins me today from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hey, Jordan.
Hello. Great to be here with you, Charles.
Yes. No, I'm really delighted you could spend some time with me today. I appreciate it. I've never, ever, ever set foot in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, should I one day find myself in Tulsa, Oklahoma, what's the one place I'd immediately have to go check out?
Absolutely. The one place I would send you if you came to Tulsa is the Gathering Place. It's a huge 66-acre park in the middle of Tulsa, right on the Arkansas River, and it's fairly new and it's a really, really neat place to see. It's I think received some awards for being one of the nation's top parks, and it's new as of just a few years ago.
Okay. Okay. Immediately after that, I'd probably want to check out a Thunder game. I really like the Thunder, but different story. Any case, again, Jordan, I really do appreciate this. I need to ask you another little bit of an offbeat question, but it occurred to me as I was going through your LinkedIn page. I saw that you did an 8-week ethnographic study of Indian and Nepalese culture and language. This was in 2015, I believe. What prompted that? What was the experience like? And did at any time you get the urge to ascend Everest? I mean, it's right there. Base camp is probably within striking distance.
Yeah, it's been a while. I went to India, Nepal on a study abroad program in college, and so I went with a group of people, and we were looking at the education system in Nepal. We visited some schools, and we were looking at in India. I did a study on some of the like wellness and yoga, and looked at how the Western interest in yoga has influenced its practice and perception within India itself. And so a big part of my experience in Nepal was also visiting monasteries and immersing myself in some of the Buddhist practice. I didn't just want to study it academically. I wanted to really like feel it and be there with the monks and experience the rhythm of the chanting um,
Wow.
and the stillness and that ritual. And so it just gave me a much deeper understanding and experience than I could ever get in four walls. And so during my time in Nepal, I did also do a 10-day trek, but I didn't make it to Everest Base Camp. The thought, of course, crossed my mind. I saw it from the plane window, but for me, the experience is more about the immersion in the culture. And although Everest Base Camp could be a bucket list achievement, the trek that I did was just stunning and incredible, and the cultural connections along the way were amazing. And so, who knows? Maybe I'll make it back one day. I have a dream of returning to Nepal and doing a trek with family and kids one day when I have kids.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's certainly a once in a lifetime experience. If you do it twice in a lifetime, even better.
Yeah.
Yeah. You founded Remble in 2020 during the pandemic. What were you seeing and experiencing that led you to start Remble?
Yeah, it's a great question. So actually, I think the idea for Rumble did come in 2020. We started building Rumble really at the end of 2021, and it launched in 2022. And I'm a therapist, have a background as a therapist, and I'd started a social media account sharing information and education and resources on mental health and relationships. And I had a lot of people reaching out saying, I need help. Can you help me? And I would encourage them to find a therapist to see, because the volume of messages I was receiving, I couldn't possibly, respond to or help everyone that was needing support. And so many people would tell me that it's not accessible for them to see a therapist. They couldn't afford it for whatever reason. It wasn't covered by their insurance, or they lived somewhere where they just didn't have easy access. So they were wanting more on-demand type resources where they could get some self-guided support. So that's part of what inspired Rumble, as well as in seeing clients. I found, I'm able to see them and provide support for an hour a week. And then clients are largely left on their own the other 6.5 days a week. And when they're in crisis, they're reaching out to their therapist through text and calls. And as providers, we were just quite overloaded. And wanted to provide a resource that clients could also turn to between sessions, that would have coping skills and resources for them to get some self-guided support.
So tell our listeners how Remble works.
Great question. So we are on the web. We also have an app, and we are a 24/7 on-demand mental health resource. We've partnered with over 40 different therapists for content. So we have on the app, we have over 300 TikTok style videos with tips and advice from therapists. We have over 150 more in-depth courses and sessions on various topics ranging from anxiety to depression to trauma to addiction recovery to relationships and parenting and stress and many different topics. We have a coping skills library with videos of therapists guiding you through a coping skill. In the moment that you need it, perhaps you're feeling really anxious or about to have a panic attack, you can open that video and be guided through a self-regulation exercise. We also have guided meditations on the app, guided breath work, an encrypted journal, a bunch of other different tools and activities and resources, as well as an AI chat named Mia that's been trained by our clinical team and is there to provide 24/7 assistance to people who perhaps it's 2 in the morning and they don't have a friend to call or someone to turn to. Mia can be kind of like a mental health companion or assistant.
Ah, okay. Neat. And how configurable is Mia? Is it configurable or is it a chatbot and you interact with it and it's called Mia?
It's yeah, so it is a chatbot called Mia. She's essentially our AI powered mental health assistant. And so she's designed to provide that 24/7 support to people who need that space to process their thoughts and emotions and challenges. She's been trained using evidence-based mental health like content and principles pulled from CBT and mindfulness and other therapeutic approaches. And so users can come to Mia with a specific problem. Maybe they're feeling anxious about work or struggling in a relationship. And she'll guide them through, she'll ask some questions and then offer some personalized insights, perhaps ask some questions, coping strategies. And she can also pull content from our library that she'll suggest based on what it is that you're struggling with. If there's something that in our library that she thinks might be useful, she'll pull that and recommend it to you, and you can click on it right there in the chat. So we've trained her to recognize and respond to a wide range of emotional states with warmth and validation, and encourages users to engage in practices that may be helpful for them, but definitely not a replacement for therapy. Very valuable kind of companion, someone that like a resource that people can turn to
Right,
when they're needing support. And we've designed her to kind of meet people
right.
where they are. But she's ever evolving with our continued training.
Yes, no, understood. Kind of anticipated the next question, which is the next logical question. So, on your site, you mentioned escalation protocols. What exactly are these, and how does that work?
Great question. So currently in our consumer app, we're prioritizing user privacy. So all of those conversations with Mia in the consumer app are encrypted and fully private. We can see how Mia, our AI chat, responds to messages, but we don't have any identifying information that links conversations to specific users. Through our customer discovery, found that a lot of users would not feel comfortable speaking with an AI chat if their conversations were not private. So we designed the Mia accordingly on the consumer app. We have, like I said, we have the algorithm that removes any identifying details before our team reviews conversations for training purposes. So currently for the consumer app, when our system detects that a user is in crisis, Remble provides them with an immediate access to a crisis resource, including direct referrals to crisis hotlines in their area, whatever resource we determine would be most useful or relevant. And so that's the consumer app. We have a kind of a second app that is a research app, and for some of our provider facing solutions, we have some different policies in place. So while conversations remain private, we're currently working on developing functionality so that if our system detects that a user is in crisis or at risk, we can escalate by notifying their care team to ensure that they're getting that immediate support that they need. And so having both functionality allows us to like offer both a fully private experience for consumers, since that's primarily what they're looking for, but also that sort of like a safety net approach for provider supported users. And we're really seeing value in both models and are working to expand our escalation pathways within the right partnerships so that people can get that, directly connected to that in-person support, and the right providers and care team will be notified that a user is potentially in crisis and so that they
Oh,
can reach.
yeah, excellent. In a previous pod, I spoke with someone who mentioned that the biggest flaw in most mental health apps or self-directed platforms, if you will, that there's no duty to warn functionality built in. So there's no way of sending notifications to the appropriate people when someone is in crisis or expressing suicidal ideation, but it appears that you're working to have this very thing in place.
Yeah, and that's it's been a really big like conversation topic for our team and the providers we're talking to. It's really finding that balance between safety and privacy is a challenge in digital mental health, and it's something that we're taking
Sure.
really seriously and having a lot of conversations with various advisors and others about this. And so we found that a one size fits all approach doesn't really work for mental health support because some users want full privacy, while others, especially those in a clinical setting and providers, they really perhaps need those escalation protocols and benefit from that real-time intervention. And so we're trying to develop a flexible approach that allows for both, and that so that users and providers can choose the level of support and privacy and escalation that aligns with their needs.
Yeah, so got to dial all that stuff in.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, initially you were focused on serving individual consumers and expanded to supporting providers, payers, and the public sector. How did that process go? What's the value prop that resonated with providers, payers, and the public sector? I don't know if it's one thing that resonated, maybe something different resonated for each one of those groups. Uh,
Yeah,
you tell
that's
me.
a great question. Yeah, so we did initially build Rumble with a focus on individual consumers, giving that 24/7 access to mental health support. And we found that like as we've expanded into these other sectors, it's kind of been a natural evolution because we solve a lot of the key challenges that they're facing. So for providers, for example, we are helping to extend care between sessions. So we're offering that continuous support to clients, which helps to reduce that clinical burden. And it's somewhat like a supplement to therapy. So it helps clients to stay really engaged, patients to stay engaged and making progress on their treatment plans outside of appointments. They can like return to homework or a coping skill that their clinician, their therapist, perhaps they were introduced to in session. I remember when I was a therapist, I would have clients, I'd teach them a coping skill, and they'd come back a week later and say, I was like freaking out and I could not remember that coping skill you taught me. And I know you told me to practice every day, but I just couldn't remember it in that moment. And so now they're able to pull up the Remble app and be guided through that coping skill that they've saved in their library. So for providers, we're really helping to fill in those gaps in care. We're not currently working with payers yet, but we provide a cost-effective, scalable way to support mental health at more of a population level. So by being able to provide that proactive, self-guided support and early intervention, we can help reduce some of their higher cost claims by addressing mental health concerns before they escalate. And then in the public sector, we're primarily working with counties, and we found that we offer a really accessible mental health solution for underserved communities and especially people living in more rural areas. In a lot of public programs, they struggle with long wait lists, people having to drive long distances to get support or workforce shortages. And so we help bridging those gaps by providing that immediate 24/7 support. And we've also found working with like first responders, 911, like call centers as well, that those staff really they're experiencing a lot of secondhand trauma and needing support with de-escalation and like self-regulation between calls. And so we are that kind of on-demand support that they can pull up a resource within the app between calls or in that moment when they need it. So there's different value, different use
Sure.
cases for different sectors, but that's primarily what we've found.
Yeah, yeah, as I'd expect. Jordan, many conversations I have about mental health is premised on the stressors on today's workforce. Arguably, they are more prevalent and various than at any time in our recent past, particularly given things like the threat that AI poses to jobs and careers and the attendant anxieties. So what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so we are seeing that there's more stress, anxiety, and uncertainty today, and in today's workforce, I think a lot of employees are navigating like economic pressures and job instability, the evolution of AI. So that's reshaping industries, and a lot of people are feeling this pressure to adapt quickly and to upskill or redefine their career paths, which does lead to more anxiety and in the workplace. And so within Remble, we're seeing many users seeking support around like anxiety, workplace stress, imposter syndrome, uncertainty about the future. Conversations with Mia, for example.
You actually address things like imposter syndrome?
We do, yeah, we do have some content, not a lot on that topic, but we do have some. We have like a huge variety range of topics and also
Yeah, but that
conversation.
happens. I'm sorry, Jordan. That just happens to be a particularly interesting topic. I'd love to at some point address specifically that, not in today's pod, but at some point, because it
Yeah.
just to me has so many interesting ramifications. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course. And we're seeing people, talking to Mia about imposter syndrome as well. People like being overwhelmed, struggling with work-life balance, fears about their job security. And so there's an increasing need for tools to manage stress proactively, which is why like our coping skills library, our self-regulation tools, our guided meditation and breath work content has been really widely used. And then we're noticing since the pandemic a shift towards organizations starting to support their employees' mental health more, not just because it's what they should do, but because it also helps like retention and engagement and productivity for employees. And so that's one of the reasons why we're starting to work, looking at working more with employers in the public sector to make
Yeah,
mental health tools more accessible to their employees.
yeah. No, it's great.
So
Yeah, again, I'm sorry,
and I was
Jordan.
gonna also say like AI is a big part of that conversation of like the increased stress, but it's also part of the solution because when it's really thoughtfully leveraged, it can help to provide scalable mental health support and bridge some of the gaps in access to care. Like helping people to build resilience despite all of the uncertainty. It's a part of the problem, but also part of the solution.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's kind of interesting. I have had variations of that particular conversation, and immediately the conversation goes toward the tools that are available and perhaps some issues that practitioners have. This is impinging on their expertise, and so the conversation can go in that direction. But I think the other conversation, and I don't have this conversation as often, but I think it's perhaps an even more productive conversation is like, what are the opportunities out there, given all these stressors and given, maybe not particularly, but additionally that AI is bringing and all of the anxieties, as you say, uncertainties it brings. I just find that that side of the conversation, that AI or technology side of the conversation is not brought to light nearly as much as the other. But in any case, I appreciate you addressing that. Jordan, tell us a little bit about your partnership with Chestnut and Lighthouse.
Yeah, great question. So we're really excited to be working with Chestnut and Lighthouse as a part of their SARC grant to provide digital mental health support for individuals in recovery. And one of a really big challenge for people in recovery is maintaining access to ongoing supportive resources and support outside of the traditional treatment settings. And so we're helping to kind of bridge that gap by offering 24/7 on-demand mental health tools, the AI chat and therapist created content that people can access anytime they need it, perhaps in that moment when they're experiencing a really big craving and they would perhaps otherwise relapse. They have a resource to turn to either chat with Mia or like we have developed specific content around cravings and other addiction related topics. And so we're able to provide people with a certain level of immediate support and coping strategies and guidance tailored to where they are right now, whether it's managing cravings or processing emotions or working on building resilience. So we're excited to be working with them on this research and with this grant and helping people to get that consistent, accessible support no matter where they are in their healing journey, their healing, growth, and transformation
Yeah.
journey.
Yes, yes. Well stated. Well stated. Any plans for Remble that you care to share with us?
Sure, we have some exciting developments on the roadmap. This year, we're developing the ability to chat with Mia verbally. So instead of just a typing conversation back
Oh,
and forth, you'll be able to verbally speak to her and she'll talk back. So it'll be sort of like a phone conversation. And so we're excited for that. I think it'll make it more accessible for people who perhaps, don't want to be typing, to be able to just speak to Mia and have a conversation. We're also developing the ability for you to be able to see a history of your conversations with Mia. And then we're working right now on a really massive library update and reorganization. It's taking a lot longer than we expected, but
it
I'm
always
excited.
does, Jordan. It always
It
does.
sure does. We have a lot more content than I realized, and all of the tagging and yeah, but it'll make it a lot easier for people to find the content they're looking for. We have a really massive content library, so keeping it very well organized and making it easy for users to find the content that would be most useful and helpful for them is really important to us. So that reorganization will be completed later this year and is something that we're also working on.
Oh, all sounds great. All sounds great. Wish you the best of luck on all of these endeavors, Jordan.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thanks so much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. Today, I spoke with Jordan Green, CEO and founder of Remble Health. Remble is a mental health app that empowers individuals, providers, and clients with innovative AI tools, mental health resources, and 24/7 AI-powered chat support. She spoke to me today from her headquarters in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is Charles Epstein for the Catalyst Podcast. Thanks for listening.